Hello, everyone, and welcome to Trailblazin with Tara Misu, the podcast where we try to put the fun back into cannabis while sharing a little insider wisdom and chatting with some amazing guests. All right, today I have a really fun one. This guy is the Chief Cannabis Officer and a part owner of High Times Magazine. He ran the Cannabis Cup for over a decade. He's also a founder of the Cannabis Genetics Institute in San Francisco and Amsterdam. He did a very cool DVD called Grow Like a Pro, which has a little cult following. He's the CEO of a company I work with in New Jersey called Applied Cannabis Sciences. He's lectured about cultivation at 2 of the 3 accredited college cannabis courses in New Jersey, one of which I teach. And he is a board member of Chemistree, which is a public Canadian cannabis company, and New Jersey CannaBusiness Association, where I'm the executive director. This is a guy I work with a lot. He is awesome. He is a friend. Nico Escondido.
Thanks, Tara. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. This is a phenomenal space.
It is, right?
Yeah.
So we are in the Comic Book Men studio. This is, Kevin Smith, Ming Chen, Mike and Ming. This is their world. It's a very cool world.
It is. It's very stoner friendly too.
For sure. And
it's been very interesting.
There's an Iron Man helmet around here somewhere that has.
You.
Yeah.
Oh. Yes.
It's also it's very colorful.
Has some goodies in it.
Yeah. Very much so. Still does.
He asked, he's like, can we get high during the interview? I'm like, oh, I don't care.
Well, okay, so I'm just going to come clean at the onset. So I had to medicate this morning, okay? I mean, I use it medically. I'm not going to say what for specifically, but a situation arose, and I felt I needed to medicate. So I'm just putting that out there, but...
You're one of the only people I know who has a card for... What is it? A cannabis worker, a cannabis caretaker, and a cannabis patient?
This goes under what we're not talking about. But I am a patient in the great state of New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And, better to medicate with a plant, right, than some pain meds or something. So, also, I wanted to respect your wishes. You had said that this was, first of all, a very... casual, relaxed space, which it is. The vibe is great here, and Chris and everyone is great.
Awesome.
And you said, you wanted to keep it real.
Yeah.
Right? And so I wanted to respect your wishes, and so I figured for today, we're going to keep it real.
I would expect nothing less.
Okay, so
did you think I was going to come at you with, like, can you brush up on all the latest legislation? We're going to be talking about bill number.
You are a legislative whiz, okay?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to New Jersey. And, so I wasn't sure, like, where I need to really brush up for this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't want to scare you off.
But
I was going to screw around with you and be like, yeah, can you read up on all this?
Yeah. That's too sad.
It is sad,
of a topic matter for this show. This is
really
more upbeat. Look at where we are.
I got my
wow.
I got my cannabis prescription for PTSD from the New Jersey application process. So, this is how I met Nick. So we went to high school in the same town. We went to school down the street from each other. We're 1 year apart in age. So we're a year apart in school. We worked at magazine publishing companies across the street from each other. We were at cannabis events around the country, attending the same ones, worked with the same people, or probably at some of the same parties, I would think. Knew some people at High Times. And 11 years I've been in. How many years are you?
13 at the magazine. So.
13. So we met 2 years ago at a conference table in Sayreville, New Jersey. After all that, we never met
Jersey
until in a very weird room with a list of characters we won't mention. But
I don't even remember, so that tells you where we were on that evening.
Well,
okay.
2 guys with the same name. At any rate, yeah. So we met as the application process in New Jersey has been sick. It's been really brutal. And we were both looking to form teams, and we kind of came in a team merger to make like a cannabis super team.
Yeah. All Stars.
All-stars, yeah.
Yeah, a team of venerable cannabis all-stars vets from the industry. It's a good team.
Yeah.
You know, which is now Applied Cannabis Sciences of New Jersey. And, you know, we have an application pending, don't we?
Sure do.
And, you know, another one of the topics, I mean, we can certainly talk about it a little bit, is the state of affairs here in New Jersey. It's you know, obviously, you know, very frustrating for a lot of us. And I'm sure also for the DOH and for legislators all the way up to the governor's office. You know, it's been a long road. I mean, we've made a lot of progress. So you know, I don't want to belittle anything that we've done here in New Jersey. You know, but it is right now, you know, a problematic situation.
Yeah.
It's been a tooth and nail fight too, the whole way through. It hasn't been easy.
It has,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate because it has nothing to really do with the policy or the legislation. It's just politics here in New Jersey, and that's that's the first thing that's so disheartening, you know. And I'm a born and raised Jersey guy, like Tara said. We went to school right here in Jersey, not too long ago, just a few years ago.
A couple years ago,
high school, and we. You know, I mean, we've seen this change vastly, which I never thought I would see in New Jersey in my lifetime. With you know, I mean, a governor saying we're gonna have recreational in 90 days. That was a brazen statement. Didn't go too well, but I think we're gonna get there. You know, I think we're gonna get there, and I think that. But it's not. You know, the problem isn't just specific to New Jersey. So I don't want to like put our state here under the bus.
But the one unusual decision both you and I have made, and very few people have made, is to stay in New Jersey. Most people, you know, have traveled over to California, Colorado, somewhere the laws allow a little bit more, and we've both been kind of, you know, fighting the good fight here for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you get older and you start making decisions based on other things, and certainly going out west and all that would have been, you know, a wise decision in terms of, you know, business in our industry, but at the same time. Someone's got to plant the flag here. It's going to come here, right? So why not be here and start trying to do it, you know? And that's kind of how I thought about it.
So what do you think about the limited licenses in New Jersey, the amount they're giving out?
Yeah, so, you know, I was thinking about this on the way down here, and I think, you know, the license limits, like, that's one thing. And how every state wants to regulate it you know, that's the problem isn't. The problem is larger, if I may pull this back for a second. You know, the industry is in a downturn. The capital markets are not doing well. The investment dollars have dried up. Multi-state operators are not showing the revenue that was predicted, and people are starting to panic because this bubble has burst. It's just the first bubble, I think. I think there'll be another bubble, and I think that happens when. You know, the one thing that really does need to happen that I think people underestimate is that this plant needs to be rescheduled on the federal level, right?
For sure.
This has to happen in order for this industry to be bona fide and move forward and participate in basic capitalism, which is interstate commerce, right? And so we're all, you know, the value of this industry and these licenses, as you brought up, is, you know, it's inflated, right? Because when you really think about it and you're competing in a localized market, people underestimate the competition, they underestimate the product, and these have allowed the black market to thrive. And, you know, that's another thing that I feel like we should talk about, if you don't mind me just rambling here for a little minute, right? Yeah. But, you know, I mean, let's just get into it, you know, and then we'll talk about more fun stuff. But the black market, you know, people also, we would have so many times this would come up in editorial meetings, okay, about respecting the culture of the plant, okay? And I know that sounds hippie and everything and all 60s and all that, and I know that that's not the only type of people that use marijuana by far, right? But there is a ritualistic and a communal aspect to cannabis that people are overlooking, and that's the new people coming in. It's the money people, the business people, you know, people who were not of the industry, and they're like, well, why is the black market thriving? Well, yeah, okay, first of all, the quality is sometimes better than these dispensaries. The price is definitely better by a wide margin, and then people are comfortable right now with their habits and how they use it, whether it's medically or recreationally. They get it from a source that they've trusted for a long time. It's part of their routine. You know, the process, especially like here in New Jersey, to get a card was, you know, not easy, you know, and it really put a lot of people off. And that happens everywhere, and so here we are, and everyone's like, what's going on, and I know that's what you want to talk about a little bit, is what's going on in this industry. People are starting to sweat. Well, I don't want to say like I saw this coming, but I think that, it was obvious at the onset that there was a lot of overvaluing, overestimation. It got this green rush that happened. It happened so fast. It wasn't well thought out and conceived. And then going back to legislation and the regulations and the compliance issues, the tax issues, none of it's thought out. And then what will happen is one day the feds will reschedule it and it will become a federal platform, and then all of this will get whitewashed away and we'll start all over again. So, so that's, that's where we've gotten to.
I mean, you bring up a good point, and I agree with everything you said. The opioid crisis is one that is really only remedied by adult use legalization, because what you said right there, all the hoops you had to jump through to get that card, someone who's in like an active opioid addiction isn't jumping through all those hoops, going to doctor's appointments, showing up with your electric bill, whatever you gotta do. But you see everywhere adult use goes through, opioid use goes down, because now it's just the same as going to a liquor store. Hey, I'm 21, here's your cannabis. And it's changed the language from it being a gateway drug to being an exit drug off more harmful substances.
Wow. Yeah, I like that term.
Yeah, for sure. And the culture being gone is one I talk about a lot, because that kind of breaks my heart a little bit. If you Google either one of us, there's not a lot of pictures of us pre-2018 in suits. But you evolve with the industry, and the industry certainly has evolved with these companies going public. But like you said, these false valuations, I mean, I'm kind of happy to see it going down in a way, because it was so many opportunists and people who take an industry that I love. I've put my heart, soul, I've bled for this, just coming in and taking advantage of it in this false green rush, and they drove it into the ground in some ways.
Well, look, we said we're going to keep it real, right? So,
yeah.
And I don't, we shouldn't have platforms to disparage, and that's not constructive, right? But like you said, watching it kind of implode, and watching people scratch their heads. I don't know. I was like Schadenfreude, taking pleasure in other people's dismay. I don't want to.
No, not pleasure, not pleasure. No,
like that,
I'm just saying it was becoming a bit of a circus. And now I think it's going to regulate, and the cream will rise to the top, and the qualified people will still have an industry. But some of the...
Well, there's going to be a correction, right, at some point, and that's going to happen. And the question also centers upon the enforcement of these regulations, the enforcement of the black market and all that, and who is going to want to put the dollars in, on the next round.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, people are writing down $70 million losses. Constellation put that money in, and half of it's written off.
Poor Constellation. There was one thing we said we weren't going to talk about.
What did we say?
A certain virus. But I was going to say Constellation's taken some real rough beats recently.
Because their main product is named after
a horrible virus. And
a flesh-eating... No, I'm just kidding.
Did you see their latest ad campaign?
No.
So they wanted to make like a seltzer, like a White Claw or something. So they made a Corona seltzer, and whatever the season was, I think the summer, spring. The ad campaign was coming ashore this summer.
Oh no!
All right, people. Let's get back to.
I love Corona. It's one of my favorite beers, actually. Corona with lime on the beach. Can't beat that.
No, I don't even want to touch this.
We can edit this out.
No, yeah, we'll. Fast forward, and we're back with Tara from Blazin' Bay. I didn't feel like we got a proper intro on the show though. What's the name of the show?
So it's Trailblazin with Tara Misu.
Right. There we go. Yeah. Nice.
So I did do an intro.
You did.
I
know.
I probably talked really fast. I do that.
Are you gonna get some like some sound behind it?
I am. I actually I'm having intro outro music done now. So
nice.
I'm just putting this all together little by little.
I like it. I like it.
It'll be cool.
All right. Cool.
So
what else is going on, huh?
So what else is going on? So what do you think about the people who have kind of been left behind, those culture people? I'm sure you knew a lot of them, the people who this industry was built on.
Well, I think a lot of those people correctly, wisely went out west.
Yeah.
I think, and there's in a huge, so that's the thing too. California hasn't crashed like go to Oregon, go to Colorado and see what happened.
Oregon's prices are going back up finally.
Good.
Yeah.
But California is hanging in there, but it's also the 6th largest economy in the world with 60 million people. Probably at least a third of which smoke cannabis, right? And they're just barely hanging on.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of opportunities out there. A lot of people went out there, and there's a lot of things to do because it is a more bona fide industry, from entertainment to restaurants to farming and agriculture and all kinds of different products and products for pets and CBD and all this, and the research and the science out there is really solid, and the labs are really solid, and so there's a lot of work out there if you want to go out there, but it's competitive, and it's like, and it's a very small world and on that end of it, behind the scenes, and I feel bad because I think a lot of people who don't deserve it went out there and struggled in that race, and the key is just like any business, you need to have some of your own money if you want to get something going, and I think that the people who were able to do that made some nice little spin-offs for themselves. I have a lot of friends who found a little niche and everything, and unfortunately, like with media, I think there's not a lot of it,
Yeah.
And or what I should say is there's a lot of it in small format. You know what I mean?
Podcasts.
Yeah, well, there's podcasts now. There's, which reminds me, and thanks for the plug on the DVD, but I brought you a gift.
Is it autographed?
No, but it could be.
It's definitely going to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to come up with a contest. Maybe I'll announce it at the end of the program to win an autographed Grow Like a Pro DVD. Nico traveled all around America. Well, you tell us about it.
You were doing a better job, I think. That sounded good. I'm going to record that, and we're going to use that as a... here, well, can I reach it over here? Can I grab it for you? Hold on. I'm going to present it to you. How did you know I had this, by the way?
Because you brought it to our Jersey City event. So when you said, I figured that was...
You've seen this?
I've seen this, and I think we've watched clips together and laughed about them.
Look, we got it. But
Okay.
This is video. Look, so here it is. It's an actual full-length DVD. This is old, by the way, so I'm not even trying to plug
It comes with it comes with a DVD player, so you can watch it.
What's a DVD player? Is that still a thing? Is that still technology?
I'll have to throw that in the package.
Can I tell you something, though, about this? Because this was the coolest part. So you're right. We went around. This took like 8 weeks. We shot it on location, sight unseen. Okay, so listen, I cut a lot of flack for this, even though this is an amazing instructional DVD. I caught a lot of flack for it, and it went up, got pirated and went up on YouTube. And man, for years, it had millions and millions of views. And then someone at High Times caught wind of it and called YouTube or whatever and had it taken down. And then since then it gets pirated and put back up, but it's never hit like millions of, viewer numbers because it keeps getting pulled down by YouTube or whatever, which I think it's kind of cool. But yeah, so I don't remember.
We were laughing about there were some words you used like 100 times.
Oh, well. So that's what I was going to say. I'm not an actor, okay? Let's just be very clear right now that I am not an actor, and this is a full-length 2-hour DVD.
Yeah.
You should have seen we had we had so much footage, and then we had to cut it, and it was a cool project.
Yeah.
I was in the editing room with the guys.
He's like driving through rivers and things.
This is you're right. It's going to be a cult classic one day. My kids are going to be in college, and they're going to be like, Dad, what the fuck is this? Look at what we found. And but yeah, we went in sight unseen, okay, and no script, and just shot. And it was up to me to put something cohesive and coherent together that people could follow. And so what I said was I want to make it like a book. And so if you go to the DVD menu, there's like 60 chapters. And you can go to like cloning, or you could go to lighting, or you could go to nutrients, right? It's like a video encyclopedia, on how to grow cannabis. And I think this would be right up Chris's alley. So now I regret not bringing more copies.
Well, you can give me one. I will bring it to Chris next time.
Yeah, or we could give this to Chris, and I can give
And
you
you could.
another
I'll
one,
see
because
you. That's probably smarter.
Yeah,
I'll see you tomorrow.
because this is
Literally.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's the story. We went around. It's pretty cool. It's indoor greenhouse, outdoor. I mean, this was hella fun to make. This was a long time ago, guys.
But we're sitting here joking, being casual, but you are a cannabis encyclopedia. How many articles did you write for High Times about growing?
I don't know.
Hundreds. Literally hundreds of articles gone around the country.
Solid decade of
Yeah. So what this guy knows about cannabis more than most. What is it? You've forgotten more than most people will ever know.
That is true. This is a fact.
That applies to most things in your life.
Sometimes you could jog the memory and really get it going,
Yeah.
And it starts flowing, But no, I mean, it's like riding a bike, and I personally think, that was the best aspect of cannabis for me. I mean, when I was just a journalist, just, started at High Times and as a cultivation reporter, and that was the best. I just flew around the world and I saw the best and biggest cannabis plantations, farms, and greenhouses in Spain and Holland and Vancouver and BC and Mexico and Hawaii. Israel. I got to meet Dr. Raphael Meshulam and interview him. He was the first scientist to discover and isolate THC in 1964.
Didn't he also discover the endocannabinoid system?
He did, and anandamine, and also the CB receptors. I mean, these people at his lab in the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and I got to see the lab, and I mean, it was so old school. It was like beakers and test tubes and stuff.
What year was this roundabout?
When I met him, I'm gonna say this was like around 11 or 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
2012.
Yeah, somewhere in there. I mean, he was such a gracious, host, and we had started with tea in his office, and he gave us hours of his time, and I recorded everything, obviously. And I had a friend from college who spoke fluent Hebrew to translate, but that was unnecessary. He spoke imperfect English. I was not allowed to video. Only got a couple of photos with him, but it was a great article. And there's so much unused footage from this, and I go back periodically and read it, and it's like science that's just coming out, like I said, about CB1 and 2 receptors and all of these different, and he's just going, it's like a treasure trove of information from this man.
Yeah, so just to repeat what Nick said there, this guy isolated THC and discovered the endocannabinoid system. So all the science that we're learning today, everything in the medical field, is built on this man's research. And he's never smoked weed, right?
No.
Which is fascinating. No. Have you ever thought about, do you have permission to release your interview with him? The recordings?
That's interesting.
That'd be great to share that with the world.
Probably technically, I don't know, probably High Times probably owns it. I don't know. I don't think anyone there is going to come after me or anything if I was to release it or write it up somewhere else. But I mean, obviously, if I did, I would probably give it to High Times first anyway. What I mean? Just say here, and see if they want it. But
there's a lot of educational on his website. I looked it up because for the course I'm teaching, I of course include him in it. And I had my students watch. There's a whole video on his website that's pretty informational. So anyone who doesn't know about him. But you mentioned Amsterdam, which is awesome.
Yes, it is. Yes.
I too was there back in the day. Very different world than what we have here now. But so a story I love that you told me was the High Times Cannabis Cup, your first one in Amsterdam. What it was then, and how you took it under your wing, and kind of what you made it.
All right. Well, so let's clarify. Everyone says I ran the Cannabis Cup.
Okay.
Which is not exactly true, because the Cannabis Cup is the entire event.
Sure.
Which is
you ran the judging.
The competition, yes.
Okay.
So which is, if you ask me, the coolest part of the Cannabis Cup.
For sure.
But it's evolved, since when I took it over and what it used to be, like you said, and in Amsterdam it was different, and it was a cool model, and it was awesome because really there were two parts to it. There was the judging by the general public, which basically meant you come to Amsterdam for a week, right? We have this big expo and a big warehouse with all these vendors, and that's going on all week. And at night there's parties and there's concerts, right? Which were awesome. And so that's the Cannabis Cup by day. And then by night, sort of, you're going around to the coffee shops who entered the competition, and you're buying, a gram or whatever, and that's how they make their money. And you smoke it, and then you come back at the end of the week, and everyone votes. Okay, now that was just so much fun for everybody, for all the judges. You bought a judge's pass, and you went around with your judge's pass, and you got like a discounted gram for like €5, €10 or something, and you smoked the joint with your buddies, and then you made notes. I mean, you should see people. I mean, they loved it. Kids loved it. It was these college kids coming over, and not just even college kids. I mean, from all over Europe. It was a really big thing. By the end, we were getting thousands and thousands of people were coming to this thing. And then the other side of it was a panel of judges that selected from a different kind of crop, if you will, of bud. And back then it was not very technical, and so that's when we changed that. That's where we changed it. When we brought the cup over to the States, in medical states, we made it a lot more technical, And I don't know how people felt about that. I think I did right by it. I think we did a good job. We accumulated a very interesting amount of data, which drove content, and I that was my proudest part of it. I mean, the data we gave for free to physicians and patients and anybody who we knew would use it right, but also to drive content about, cannabinoid levels, terpene levels, what they do, what kind of effects they elicit, because we had bona fide patients as judges, and we created an app and an algorithm where they put in their scores, for these different products, and then we combined it with lab scores, and it generated, a rating for these products, and it was really cool, and it, like I said, it did a lot of good, and the content it generated was really cool too. It was like, to me, no one else was doing it. No one else had the capability to do this on this kind of scale, Yeah. And in some ways, it was like mini clinical trials. You know what I mean? And
for sure. And was that when you were working with Steep Hill and you had them all tested? And...
Yeah. Steep Hill was the first lab in California, and we work with them. We still do. The people there are great, and some good friends there. Yeah.
So, so you created this database that, really, I've heard you say anyone who has good intentions is welcome to the information, and it's possibly one of the largest, qualitative databases in the world on cannabis, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So, good stuff. So, what do you have any other kind of behind the scenes high time story? Just any kind of fun celebrities who were a little, I know you've met all the.
I have to say, everyone we meet and work with is just super chill, which is what always struck me. And you would expect that kind of from people who were like-minded and, into the plant and everything. And, I guess some of our closest supporters was Tommy Chong and Snoop Dogg. They were always around and helping out. Some of my favorite people were probably Method Man and Redman. Those guys are. All
right, can I tell you a little?
They're hilarious guys.
A little inside cannabis right now. I don't even think you know this.
Oh, let me hear.
So, the adult use legalization bill, and I know this from a good source, even though it sounds like bull. They wanted it to be bill number 420, but they wouldn't give them bill number 420. So they named it the Cannabis Regulatory Expungement Aid Modernization Act, CREAM.
CREAM? Just forget.
I swear to God, that's why it has that long ass name, because it's the initials CREAM to spell that. So little Wu-Tang reference there.
Or is it like Cream the band?
No.
Who wrote this legislation?
That's all you're getting out of me.
I'm dating myself here.
Yeah, that's even older. But no, I actually thought that was a really cool nod, since they couldn't get bill number 420.
Yeah, well, that's to be expected. I don't think they're gonna break the.
They've actually changed it since. Now it's like the Marijuana Legalization Act, but which bummed me out because I thought that was a cool little. Every so often you get the straight-laced cannabis world to kind of go rogue and put an Easter egg in there.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you think? Are we getting when is recreational realistically possible
All right.
here in New Jersey? What if you had to say this is when I think
We're getting
will
it in the fall. So we should get it in the fall unless things go terribly south.
2022. I think once everything's said and done.
Really?
Business.
Oh, for open.
everything
Yes.
Open. Yeah.
But it's going to a ballot this November, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
This
why
is
don't
the
you
2020
need to
ballot.
explain this to me, because it's not a ballot initiative, right? This isn't like we approved it and now it's law. This is the question to inform the legislators. Am I correct?
No.
Oh,
If this goes through, we got it. So we have 65% popular support in the state right now. The reason they didn't run it last year, even though we were already over 60%, is because it was not a presidential election year. We only had the assembly going up, and that doesn't bring out young voters. So this year we'll have a high voter turnout, lots of young people coming to the polls. Majority support should pass no problem. Now, the only thing that could derail this is if we had a lot of lobbying money coming in from the opposition, Sam, people like that, who are looking to defeat this ballot. And there is lobbying money coming in. But so myself and the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association, partnering with the ACLU and some other, big organizations for legalization in New Jersey, we're putting together a ballot initiative to really try to educate the public. And so this is something I came up with, and we're going to be having an event. I don't know when this will come out, but it's April 1st, probably over in Asbury. And it's going to be called You're the Canna Date, because what we've done... my idea. Sorry.
That's a great one. I love that.
I was a marketer. But no, I do love it because what we're saying is we're taking this out of the hands of the politicians and the legislators, and we're putting it in the hands of the people. So you are the candidate now, and it's up to you when you're sitting at your kitchen's table, talking to your friends, talking to your family, to have the talking points. Because you could say, yeah, man, weed's good. No one dies from weed. And that's very true. But is it better to talk about that opioid statistic I have, to say that underage use goes down because now you're creating a regulated market and it's not as cool when your uncle and your dad are doing it? Is it good to say that property values go up because you get new roads, new schools, and police forces diverted from low-level possession arrests to actually fighting violent crime? So what we want to do is we want to create a script so we can have a little army, basically, of soldiers going across New Jersey, educating people to ignore the hype, the propaganda, the misinformation, and to really do the right thing in the fall. And I truly believe it's going to pass. And so to your question, what the question on the ballot is at the moment is very simple. It's basically, do you want to legalize weed? So we felt that, or, some people more deeply involved in this than myself with coming up with the legislation felt that might give an opening for people to say, well, what about the children and things like that. So we have some amazing legislation. That bill I was just talking about, I laugh, but it's 175 pages of amazing legislation. And Illinois implemented it. They basically took our bill and said, wow, that's great, let's do it. And a month later, they legalized cannabis. And their industry is booming. So they have a really good industry, and what we're thinking now is put that legislation in front of the ballot question so people can't poke holes in it and say, oh, what about X, Y, and Z? Well, it's all addressed. Here's what you're voting for. So, and if that passes, then we would have, right about on the schedule you said, we would put together the Cannabis Regulatory Commission. They announced one of the picks already. And once that's together, another fun round of applications, and then, shops 2022.
So the question then is to a yes or no on the bill.
What do you mean?
The question on the ballot that people will answer is basically on the bill, yes or no on the bill.
That's not finalized right now. It's still a question, but that's a strategy that's being discussed. So it will either be a brief one-page question, should we legalize cannabis for adult over 21 use? And there's a tax statement in there as well. Or we're going to put this 175-page bill attached to it. And that's to be determined. But in the meantime, I think either way, unless the opposition really goes nuts. But that's why it's so important that people like me and you, people like anyone who has a voice in this space, really gets out there till November.
I feel like it would be beneficial if it was the bill was attached, because then when the matter is settled, it's settled, and then otherwise if it's just yes or no, like you're saying, and then they got to go back and draft a bill and fight over that for 2 years.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I mean, what's the point of that, right?
Yeah.
You're putting it right back in red tape.
I did not realize that we had the capability to make a law through a question. Because otherwise, why didn't we not do this like many years ago?
Well, there hasn't been...
What were we doing in New Jersey?
Well, Christie didn't want it, and then there hasn't been elections.
So you wanted to know Stories about high times.
I would love to know. Hold on, are we good?
Well, you know, we should just do a shout out and a brief recap, because our friend here, Chris, was unaware of the glorious history of high times, which started in 1974 by a man named Thomas King Facade. And he was a drug smuggler back in the 70s. He would run reefer up, you know, in little Cessna planes and everything. Literally, that is the money that started the magazine. And the magazine was started to advertise his reefer, his bud. So you can imagine, we were on the same distribution as Hugh Hefner and Larry Flint, you know, so like it was kind of like the Sin magazine thing. Mm-hmm. The first issue had a woman, just her silhouette eating a mushroom, and it was a counterculture magazine. And for many years, it was everything. It was any vice, you know, it was all the substances, sex, everything like that. And then in the 80s, late 80s, they cleaned it up to make it just a marijuana thing, you know. I mean, there were covers with, you know, lines of coke, and there was all kinds of crazy advertisements in this thing. And the circulation was good, you know, back then. And then we converted just to a pop magazine, and we went through some rough times. And then with the advent of Prop 215 in California, the first medical bill in 96, you know, people's attitudes started to shift a lot more, and then into the 2000s, and you started to get a few medical states, right? And then we started humming. Then around 2010, we brought the Cannabis Cup, this iconic event that was going on for 30 years in Amsterdam. We brought it over, stateside, and we were having Cannabis Cups in Denver and Detroit and San Francisco and LA and Washington, Seattle. And it was, I mean, it was pretty wild. It was like, I don't know if you ever been on like a dead tour or a fish tour or something like that. I mean, we had like dedicated fans that, you know, came in droves, you know, to these events. And when Colorado passed that bill, you know, for recreational, they actually amended their state constitution, okay, which is a huge difference, by the way, in terms of federal stuff and standings and all that. But when they did that, we had 40,000 people show up at a Cannabis Cup.
I was at that one.
You were at that one, right?
Yes.
And I think, what year was that?
14.
14, okay. And I think that was when we all were like, you know, I mean, you have this ragtag operation. We've been operating out of Manhattan for over 40 years at that point. And it's just us. It's the editors, the photographers, putting on a Cannabis Cup, and now 40,000 people show up. And it was just like, you know, what you would have thought like Woodstock was like, or like, you know, Fish's Coventry. It was a shit show with lines, you know, for miles and stuff. But it ended up being this epic party, and for 3 days at the Denver Mart. And after that, you know, Denver was like, no more. You know, you guys can't come back. And that started to happen to us. We got run out of Amsterdam at one point, which was crazy. They had and I'm just giving you like a lot of history here, but they had a conservative party in which, you know, they vote every 2 years over there. And they were instituting, I don't know if you ever heard this. This was a few years ago, the Weed Pass. It was a legislative move which was intended to limit people coming from Germany and Belgium and all this and buying kilos of weed in the UK, and that's what they did. And then they brought it back. It was a main hub, always was a main hub, Amsterdam, for cannabis, the black market, for the genetics trade, right? Which is something we should talk about, you know, in the Genetics Institute. That's why we put it there. But
there was something.
You know, so anyway, it came at an unfortunate time, and a couple of kids had passed away at a electronic dance festival, EDM over there. You know, the ecstasy and stuff was, you know, not doing well. And so anyway, the mayor of Amsterdam said, well, this is Amsterdam, and weed is legal here, and prostitution is legal here, and that's what we're all about. And there's this whole fight, and we got over there. We thought we were good. Boots on the ground, you know, again, just a bunch of writers and journalists and stuff. And we get to the venue, and they're like, sorry, like, we can't do this. And got another venue, sorry. You know, we're there a week before. We have a week lead time. It's just people coming from New York to put on this big week-long event. And everywhere we went, and we got ran out of town.
This still happens, though. This was San Bernardino last year, I believe.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's happened to us quite a few times in the States. It happened to us in Detroit. It happened then to us in Denver. And then, I mean, part of it was our fault. We had to learn how to go to the table and sit down with the mayor and the town council and state senators and say, okay, your town, your state, we'll play by your rules. What do you want? And it got to a point where, we want traffic plans and we want, all this security. And we want, again. So now we have to go and hire an events company to come and manage this kind of event. We cannot do this. We are a media company. You know what I mean? There's no, we make a magazine and a website, so that's how it's evolved. And then, I mean, now today it's, it's morphed. It's still all that. It's a music festival. It's an art festival. It's, it's a celebration of cannabis. It's seminars and panels and educational focus to it. There's a lot of cool stuff to it, but also resistance, competition, dilution. You start having a dozen of these events every year.
Yeah.
They're not special anymore. When you were having one Cannabis Cup every year in Amsterdam, well, my man, I mean, if you liked pot and you were a connoisseur, you were going. It was a thing. That was the mecca. You were going to come in to pay homage. You come to Amsterdam for a week, and so it's changed. There's been a lot of challenges with that.
I mean, we see a reflection of that right here in Jersey, where I remember 5 years ago there were 2 games in town. It was the marijuana march in New York every May. And then there was sometimes in Piscataway they did the Joys of Hemp, or NJ Weedman would throw something small, Cannabash. That was about it. Maybe 2-3 times a year you'd have an event. I could have a cannabis event on my calendar now every single day if I wanted to. There are so many people throwing events across the state, and I mean that's why I like the organization I work with, NJCB. I think we found some really good ones, but I mean, in one way, it's great to see all these new players coming in and all this excitement and buzz. But like you said, it's a dilution in a way, too, because not every cannabis event is a home run. And then it's, people are just getting like, oh, nothing's happening in Jersey. We keep going to these events. Things aren't passing.
The one thing I have to say and just give credit, a little pat on our own backs here is that High Times was OG. Went so far back that there were still dudes with ponytails and tie-dyes, and these were people of the revolution, radically pro, right? And now it's not that, and so you got people coming in and putting on these events who are not cannabis people. They're business people. They're events people. They're people just running a business, trying to make some money, and this is the new hot thing, and they get a convention center, and they get a bunch of vendors, and they really don't care about weed. There's no weed being smoked there. There's certainly no weed being sold there. Now, at our Cannabis Cups, right, I know, and that's what I'm saying. At our Cannabis Cups, if our people showed up and they couldn't buy a bag or smoke weed, I mean, then what was the point of coming to the Cannabis Cup? That was so we had to figure out how to make that happen. Yeah. And when we got to the U.S. soil, it was a challenge. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had doctors in California on buses outside the venue writing scripts to kids for $50, and that script is good for 30 days before you get your card. And then we had a medicating area, and they came in with a piece of paper they pay $50 for, and they could buy weed. There was no vending permits or nothing. All of the dispensaries, when it was medical, there were thousands of them. They were all there, just jars of weed. And it was a huge smoke out all day. Yeah. 24/7 for 3 days, and we were just puffing down, and that's how it used to be.
People can't comprehend what it used to be. When I talk about how much it changed, they can't wrap their brain around.
It's so sad, and that's why it's hard for me to go to these events.
I know.
And I'm like, people are like, well, what do you think about CBD? I was like, oh, listen, man. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. That's cool.
Yeah.
You like CBD? Cool, man. You smoke it too? Really? You just smoking hemp flowers? Okay.
I heard CBD is a gateway drug.
Yeah, better be.
So I don't know.
Don't operate a heavy machinery.
CBD, opiates, and then you use cannabis to get off it.
That's how it goes every time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't want to sound, pontificate and be some high horse here about it all, but it's different, and it's no, I don't even care. It's not like, wow, these people need to show respect. It's not like that. But they're just completely oblivious and unaware of where it's come from, right? And to where it is now. And then they sit there and they're like, well, why isn't it working? Why is this failing? You know, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's like,
You put people in
like,
charge.
You know, like, well, look at yourself, dude. Like, when
2 weeks ago, you were selling insurance.
the last event that you put on, sir, was for like ballerina costumes, you know, and now you're putting on a cannabis event. Like, I don't, what do you?
Yeah.
Where's the fish record? Mom's gonna come.
You were selling,
You know, and
you were
it
selling
doesn't.
car parts and spark plugs.
That Dude, it's true. I wish it wasn't. Everyone's like, the green rush. No, but
We're so bad.
it doesn't have,
people are gonna be like,
because
yeah, I
you
don't like these guys anymore.
no, this is probably my last episode.
You should save this till your retirement. Like, you're like, and now for my last episode.
But you know how you said it's not like pay respect, but in a way I feel like it is, because that respect has been like all the people who are here today, and I am grateful for them because they are giving legitimacy and they're bringing it into the mainstream. We couldn't do that with pickets and tie-dye shirts. So we did need
That's true.
we did
That's
need
good.
this to happen.
Good point.
But at the same time, they should respect whose shoulders this was built on, the people who were picketing, because this didn't happen overnight. This got chipped away at over decades. And you should respect the people who gave you the ability to do that.
But the question is how respect how. You know, there's different forms of respect. The first one is like, well, pay me. But these are business people, money people, and they don't want to hear that. And then they make it, then it's about money. The second is just more about like include some of these voices, right? And especially, and this is what I try to,
Licenses.
with the licensing, with the legislation, with how it all goes down. I mean, I think, and you know, it's interesting. I've seen it so many times now from the other side in the state capitals all across the country, and they're just normal people. They're just like, you know, it's like if we were a state senator and now we had to make a bill on healthcare. Well, what do I know about healthcare? But I got to do it. That's my job. And now these guys have to make bills on cannabis, you know? And so, you know, I've come around a little bit. You know, I don't want to be harsh on them, but that is the start of the problem, you know, is that it's not always smart or well-crafted legislation, right? So that, you know, that gives you a poor foundation on which to build, okay? And now all of a sudden you have the new people trying to work with, you know, the veterans of the industry, and they're not clicking and on the same page, you know. And again, it's a little unique because the new people who came in, they're also the money. You know, very rarely was the black market guy or the people who broke out of that able to put a good chunk of capital into it, so they don't end up with the equity. And so now it's not a partnership, you're working for the new guys. Yeah. You know, and
that's my biggest complaint is, so you take these people who it was built on their shoulders, and you're right, it's about inclusion, and you take them and you basically toss them aside. So, you know, if you had put someone who had a decade in this industry in charge of those events, I think you would have gotten really different outcomes than what we're seeing.
Yeah, and I mean, for better or for worse, there might have been some, you know, like that's what I'm thinking. Like, can I imagine myself trying to help produce one of these shows, and then if I say, well, how are we going to let people get high? You know? And you know, you got the manager of the hotel, and you got the investor, and you got your right, and you say this, and they're like, "Get out!" You know, like we're not getting high here, and you know, and so right there is.
I was at a meeting with you where you said that, and it went over like crickets. Like,
yeah, you know, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll float it. I'll float it like with a little smile, just to feel it out and be like, okay, so we're not going there. Okay, cool. Okay, you know, but just you know, because. You know, I mean, do you want to have a successful, you know, event?
Yeah. But
or you know,
and outside of events, just to running a business, I've been in rooms where, you know, it's say these applications, you put someone like me or yourself in charge of a team, but you're going to have someone come in with, like, we had about 25 million behind our app last time. Now that is boutique. There's people coming in who have $1 billion companies. So now you're sitting in a room. Are you going to take the money people, or are you going to take the little underdogs of cannabis over here with their small budget? But those are the people who the industry, I mean, you put me and Nick in a room and we're going to be able to talk to you about cannabis till, you know, 2021. But, you know, then you have a guy who's taken 3 companies public and you know, who's worth in a beautiful suit, and you say, "Oh, I'm going to give my company to that guy." But like you said, what's he? And then I don't know.
It's tough. It's a unique kind of industry in that way. I think because there's so different extremes with the new people and the old people. You don't see that dynamic often in other industries. At least I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but but I think we're feeling it out, and I think everyone recognizes the need. Unfortunately, there's not for people like us, money. People just throw money at us. Right?
I was climbing over bills of cash to get here. I think I said that before.
Right. I stopped at 4 banks, and then
I've been escorted out of
the thing is, though, you don't need the OGs. You don't need the veterans of the industry to move forward with your business. That's the problem, right? So like even in the most technical skill-oriented positions, let's say the horticulturalists, or the people who are extracting in the lab and testing in the lab or cooking in the kitchen, you can find people to do all of those things that hadn't previously done it with cannabis because they're previously doing it for other things. And so it just comes down to science, right? And so you find people who are smart and who can do these things regardless of if you're baking a pie with, an infusion or without, right? Or if you're finding someone who's testing for compounds, whether it's cannabis or not. Or if you find someone who's growing lettuce, and tomatoes, or find someone that can grow cannabis. You can find the people to do that, right? So that's the other problem, okay? And then and here we are. Woe is me, for the industry veterans. Let's talk a little bit about social justice, right? And let's talk about equality in these fields too, because we're supposed to be not forgetting about all the people who suffered from the war on drugs, right? The people who were incarcerated and lost a lot because of it, and then how did they fit in? You know what I mean? So already, you've got people overlooking the entire cannabis industry. They're certainly going, or the veterans of the industry, they're certainly going to overlook the criminality aspect of the previous industry, and that's, you can force it, but then it becomes a joke. These social justice reform things are a joke. I can't tell you how many.
We're giving money to people who are buying and selling minorities and women. We're giving them a flat fee and saying, "Here, let me use your name," and then you never see them.
People are getting used. Yeah. People are getting used. And there's people found a loophole right away.
Do you know how many people asked me to be on their app for $10,000 or something? I said, if I go on an app, if my name signs that affidavit, I'm going to own 51% of it because it's going to be my app.
But listen, let's not be cowards and take the easy way out. Okay, it's easy to sit here and criticize, but
I understand.
What's the solution? What can we see? This is our responsibility is to then come forward and say, no, okay, well, you're doing it wrong, but also here's how you should do it. And that's.
I wish I had a solution. I run my mouth a lot. I don't know how much that gets done.
Well, I think about it a lot.
I could tell you 2 sobering statistics, and I do want to hear what you think.
Let's hear that.
97% of all venture capital goes to straight white males. So that leaves 3% for women and minorities.
Is that just in general or in cannabis?
In general, it's a little worse for cannabis. It's 2 point something. But yeah. So I have 2% of a chance of getting funded. Nick has 98. So aside from that, you guys could take a guess. There's 5,000 dispensaries, ballpark, in America. How many do you think are owned by minority women?
Out of 5,000?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I would have thought a decent amount because I know many women in cannabis.
Owners, 51% ownership.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean,
3.
3?
Wow, I was right with my first guess.
3. Oh, you said 3?
Yeah.
It's 3.
3%?
Yeah, it's Hope Wiseman down in Maryland, Wanda James out in Colorado, and there's a girl down in Florida as well.
Literally just 3, not even the percentage. Out of 5,000?
Out of 5,000 dispensaries?
Not 3%, 3 women.
People.
That wholly own it? I mean, there's got to be more than 3.
There's not. I mean, this girl, she was just interviewed in Vogue or...
I mean, Debbie Goldsberry, right? I mean, there are people who have their own. Maya, well, I guess if you're saying specifically a dispensary, but I mean, I know a lot of women. No, I think there's more. I think there's more.
I mean, I don't know. This woman, this is her soapbox.
At least I know a lot more who own a percentage.
A percentage. No, for
You're
sure.
Just about outright 100% own this.
Or at least the majority owner. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, so, and then how do you fix it?
How do you fix this?
How do you fix it? Excuse me. I mean, you can't You can't ask the people with the money to just give away money. That's, even though that would be ideal, you can say, well, okay, look here, you own 30% of this or something. And certainly no one's going to give, pay for something and give someone else 51%, right, and control it. So it's how do you get them involved? How do you give them a real stake in it? And yeah, I mean, it's a tough question, I think. But there are ways to give credit on sweat equity, for instance. Say, okay, so the goal is to make sure that someone who, suffered through this in some manner has at least a third of this business. Okay, well then, I guess you work that off. I guess there are ways where you let them come in and you make an agreement and you certainly have to pay them. I don't know, but that's one approach. I don't know how realistic that is. I think maybe or training programs. Just start something up where...
Well, there's also incubators. A lot of people are doing greenhouse incubator type things, which is great. They take a cut of your business, they train you up, and then small funding, kick you out the door. Yeah.
I saw programs like that in Oakland that were really good.
Yeah. Also, we always think equity in cannabis because everyone's thinking of that big exit, but there's also high interest loans too. We can't get typical small business loans like you can in most industries, but if you wanted to keep your equity and you get someone willing to take risk for high reward.
You bring up a really good point because we do always talk about equity, and it's not. Why is that necessary?
Yeah.
Because people think, oh well, I'm an owner or whatever. Well, you don't really realize the value in that until there's a liquidation event of some sort. There's an exit, right? And that if you're playing a long game, that could be 10, 20 years. Like if you're a mom and pop shop and that's your goal, but because your county or municipality says we have these social equity and social justice components, and you go and find a partner. What if it's just as simple as they have an employment contract that they have a job and they get to work in an industry that they like. Maybe they had some hardships. Maybe they got arrested or incarcerated because of cannabis. Now they get to actually work with it, and so it's ironic justice for them. They feel good, and you get a good salary. And why is that not enough?
Well, I think some people want the American dream. I think some people are worker bees and some people are entrepreneurs.
Well, fine. And then, what's the harm of kicking a couple of points? If you find a good person in there with you for, hey, you're with me for 3 years and you're my GM and then you get a couple of points. But again, what
about the American dream of the guy who came here with $1 in his pocket and wants to start his own business, and he saves up a little bit, he gets a loan, and he ends up owning a franchise of 20 establishments? Where's that dream in cannabis?
Where is that dream in America, period?
I think it still exists more in other industries.
But not so much. We're living in a time where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and there's a bigger gap, right? And the middle class is falling more to the bottom half, and that is the eventuality of capitalism. And we don't need to get into this on a cannabis show, right? But there's a lot of money there, so you're not. Especially, but you're right. It's unique in the cannabis industry because of the limit on the licenses. Yeah. It's not a free-for-all.
And the limits on banking and loans. Mm-hmm. So that's something interesting. We have a bill that just got brought to the table in New Jersey that would let people lay off insurance companies, any type of insurance, who wants to back a cannabis business. So now we're just moving past, we've had a couple for liability, but what this opens it up to is banks who want to offer loans. And we have BCB Bank here as a people I brought into our organization of 24 locations. They're cannabis-friendly bank now. They want to offer loans. The holdup has been underwriting, so they can't get an underwriter to insure the loan. If this bill passes, they will now be able to touch that. So now we're talking about small business loans for people who maybe want to, and this isn't going to help you open a vertical facility, but it could get you a micro license or a share in a dispensary.
Yeah, I agree. You want to say, well, let the better minds figure it out, but it's for all of us to really discuss and keep the discussion going, I think so. Yeah.
So one more thing I want to hit with you. I remember you talked about this briefly, but it was the day we finished in Josh's office, if you remember that day. So me and Nick spent 2 summers now, the month of August, locked in a conference room, banging out an application. But this is something you mentioned on the last day, and I thought it was really interesting. And
Uh-oh.
Maybe you could talk some more about it.
Okay.
You told me there's no such thing anymore as indica and sativa, that they've been crossed and bastardized and so much, and that you were trying to reverse engineer them to get them back as closely as you can to their original strains. Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have cannabis is a genus, to be specific, and then a subspecies, right, of indica, sativa, and ruderalis. Now, we have come now to use this vernacular as a way to describe the effects of strains, okay? And, that has become more and more difficult as everything, first of all, as seeds get feminized and as more and more strains are created and hybridized, right? So the first thing I think you have to understand is that the taxonomical nomenclature of the subspecies indica and sativa was derived from a visual inspection of the plant. Did it grow tall? Did it grow short?
Fat leaves, thin leaves, exactly.
Thin leaf varietal, broadleaf varietal, exactly. See, Chris knows. See, he's done this. He's going to be an all-star in this industry.
We'll have you on again.
He's going to be the next guest, right? We'll just switch seats, Chris. You tell me which buttons to press over there, and we'll hear from our producer.
We'll get about half of everything
We'll hear from
you
our
say.
producer over here shortly, or next week. Stay tuned.
Nick, I would love if, next time if you have something to promote, please come back on. I know you're kicking a couple future ventures around here, so
promote. I don't have much to promote. I mean, the Cannabis Genetics Institute I'd like to talk about, and that is where this work has derived from, and we founded that in 2014 in Amsterdam, and the facility is in the Bay, 3 gardens, medically or now recreationally licensed, and the intent there was to do what I had said, which was to reobtain the building blocks of the cannabis genome, right? So a pure sativa and a pure indica, and that is like nearly impossible to find. Also, to really ascertain that through gene sequencing, right, is cost prohibitive and takes a really long time. And because it's cannabis, it's not. We can do it quicker for humans and for disease and stuff like that. But it's you don't find a lot of labs doing this kind of work. It's mostly universities in Colorado, for instance, in Washington State. Being allowed to do the research, but they still farm the testing out to a lab that does the sequencing or what have you, and it's expensive. And we always thought at the me and my buddy Harry Resin.
Is that his real name?
No, it's not.
I should know better to ask.
It is not. But that is his name. But hey, look, listen. For Nico Escondido is not my real name.
Tara Misu, my parents named me that. I was named after an Italian
That's
dessert.
your middle name, Misu, I see. And then we won't say your last name, but...
Yeah, it's out there now. So is yours. It's
I know, but we still don't need to always put it. But anyway, so Harry and I founded this institute to try to make it open source and make the research we do open source, and it is mostly just R&D, and try to then put these building blocks back out there for people to breed with themselves. And also to act as a genetic preserve of sorts, right? So we would re-engineer. Now we're not modifying these. These aren't GMOs. We're just trying to, back cross and breed back to those levels. But that's an undertaking, and where you start is really important. And so, like, the best you'd have to go to these countries, and we have. We've been to Morocco, and we've been to Oaxaca, and we've been, to Malawi, and we've gone to the mountains, and you get the seeds, Jamaica too. Like, I'll tell you, like, perfect example, Jamaica, and this was the test, was we did a Cannabis Cup there. And the government gave us amnesty to do it, and the deal was we had to go to every province, to all the ganja grower associations, this was so cool, and get these entries and test them, lab test them, and then give them the results. And they wanted to know about all this. And everything, it was all grown outdoor and everything, but none of it was, the Jamaican goo or the chocolate, it had been, because they all, at some point in the last 30 years, went to Amsterdam and bought a pack of seeds. Or then with the advent of the internet, you just had a pack of seeds mailed to you, or someone brought it. These were pot-smoking countries, and the genetics...
generations just keep breed just like dogs, breeding it and breeding it.
Yeah.
Right, and not even on purpose, because in an outdoor grow, when you grow it, and the plant is, it's a deciduous plant, so it's male and female. They didn't cull the males. and it got pollinated, and just in the wind, poof, and that's
Yeah.
it, And so you could maybe find a 90-95% something, I guess, maybe, but we're trying to work it backwards, to do that. And
what would be if you were in the perfect case, be able to get them back to complete indica or sativa, what would be the benefit of having that isolated again?
Well, for breeding purposes, I think, and then I also think for medical purposes, so I always thought that eventually the medical movement, maybe even by now, would have really done a lot more research and study on cannabinoids and different levels. So like that, back to your question though, but so okay, what makes an indica and a sativa on a chemical level?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other than, there's terpenes that they have different levels, okay? And so you could say like myrcene is found in hops and mangoes. That's why real hoppy beer gives you a sedated feeling, like a couch lock feeling, like an indica. That's interesting. But that's being not created by a psychoactive compound, a cannabinoid, by a terpene, an essential oil. So now you're just going back to like aromatherapy, holistic healing kind of stuff, but that has those principles, lavender, calming, all of this stuff,
Yeah.
Same terpenes in those plants are in cannabis. So maybe somewhere there is where you can start to differentiate indica and sativa, but like THC isolated, we now know from dabs and oil, is a highly energetic compound. It's in indica, it's in sativa. The THC doesn't elicit a different feeling. It's a compound that does the same thing in either plant. So where's the other feeling coming from? We're not like really asking like we're just assuming,
So I have a question. I'll probably piss you off a little. So
Great.
but so people always say whole plant medicine is the best medicine, and to some degree I absolutely believe that, because these strains have worked synergistically for a reason over the years. But if you were to say take Blue Dream on the West Coast and the East Coast, like Nick just said, you're going to get two different products. So is there any way, and the answer is most likely no, that we can standardize that every plant in America, pharmaceutical grade of predictability for all your cannabinoids and your terpenes, your complete profile is exactly the same every time? Now, so the converse side of that is now we're engineering it. We're extracting these cannabinoids, we're isolating them, we're re-engineering it, Frankenstein, we're pulling out individual terpenes. Could be naturally sourced, although that would make you very upset, I'm sure. Is that the better solution? Is that, in a truly pharmacological way, the way that the cannabis moving forward, if we're going to treat it as medicine, we can't look at this kind of natural, holistic, whole plant medicine, which I do love, and we have to look at it as a bit more of a science project.
So it's a great question. It's a great question, and this just proves a point that we've been making all day, is that we're not even having this conversation here in the United States, in Denver or in Trenton or in any state capital. Like, we're still hung up on all this other stuff, and really, like, you're getting now into the nitty gritty, into the crux of it, and it's great. And if you go to Amsterdam, Holland, where their medical program has been there for 50 years now, I'll tell you a quick story. I was invited by Harry Resum to go out to Bedrocan, which is the Dutch national federal facility for manufacturing cannabis for the patients, for their program. This was many years, like a decade ago. We get on a train from Amsterdam and we go way north into the fields where they grow the tulips and the greenhouses and all that. So we get to this facility, and it's not a greenhouse. It's a warehouse. Yep, it's a warehouse with no windows, and we get there and we go in, and there's a guy who is like a lab tech in a coat, and I don't know if he, this is just a job to him, doesn't know, whatever, and he gives us a tour, and the lights are on the ceiling, affixed permanently to the ceiling, 30 feet above the plants. The plants are growing in 1 liter, tiny pots in rock wool, without prune, like one cola, straight up, tied to a post. And it's just it goes against the grain of everything in horticulture and agriculture principles, you're just like, what? And I'm trying to be respectful and not be like, what's going on here? But finally I was like, don't you think maybe, why have you brought the lights down a little, or, and he goes, look, man, he brings us outside of the room, and on the door, there's a laminated thing, and it's got all of the steps. turn this key, push this button, do this time, boom, boom, boom. And on this door over here, pour these nutrients in here, boom, 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 boom. And the whole thing had been standardized. The whole thing had been become a turnkey operation so that anybody off the street could walk in there and have this job and grow these plants, and that these plants would produce A, the same exact yield every time. B, the same exact chemo profile every time within a plus or minus 1%, whatever. And they knew exactly what it was. Anything over the average yield that he needed, he incinerated, showed me the incinerator room. Like, it was just dialed in and made so close to a pharmaceutical as you could, right? And that is where I always thought, well, this is clearly where it's headed. Pharmaceutical industries and all of this is what's going to happen. But for better or for worse, the products that have come out of those, Sativex, Marinol, right? These were synthesized compounds. They failed. They didn't work. They didn't do what they thought it would do.
What whole plant medicine does.
Right, the entourage effect. The sum of the whole, right, when taken all together is actually great. Well, the sum of all parts is greater than the whole, or whatever, however that goes. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying here, right? So, and that's something that is a focus of research now. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, we can't run clinical trials on humans yet to do this, right? So. Yeah, I mean, we can, this is where you go down the rabbit hole, and you really start, but then it's like, well, all these things, and what is really best? What's best for the patients? What's best for the industry? What's best for the businessmen? What's best for, and what's best for the children? What's best for society and our community? We don't have these high-level discussions, I don't think. And then in politics and in committee rooms and committee hearings, you've seen it. Someone gets fixated on one little point, and then this is a sticking point, becomes a whole point. It's like, man.
Now we get reefer madness again.
We can't stay on this.
We have not evolved that far from reefer madness.
We need
really
to move
haven't.
on, people, and
we get hung up on, say, child-safe packaging, and we talk about that for 2 months. And then we forget, what about the people with arthritis or, spasticity in their diseases where we're using medical patients and now they can't open their own medicine? Not that we shouldn't have child-safe packaging, but we get so hung up in this little bureaucratic nitpicking that we're missing the really good solutions that are going to give people better lives. So, yeah, super frustrating. All right. You got anything else?
No, this has been great.
Yeah?
Yeah, what a lovely afternoon.
Good. Yeah, I love doing this. It's so much fun.
Yeah, great space. Great show. Thanks for having me.
Of course. You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, and like I said, I think there'd be a lot of, I could see you having great success and a great line of guests coming here.
Yeah.
And I wish you all the success. And thank you to Chris and to the studios. This is a really cool place. I hope I'm back and get to meet everyone.
Yeah, we're at a shared universe pod studio.
Yeah, a podcast studio.
It's all one word.
Yeah.
It's very witty.
Podcast studio.
Yes.
Right. Where are we? In Asbury Park?
No, we're in Eatontown, New Jersey.
Asbury.
Beautiful, sunny Eatontown, New Jersey.
Whoa. We've never called it beautiful before.
No, it's gorgeous this time of year in Jersey. I say that year round, and it's never true. All right, guys. Thank you, my guests. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Chris, doing sound. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. For all you trailblazers out there, please rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps us. We got new episodes coming at you every week. Follow me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I am Blazin Bakery. That's Blazin Bakery. You can check out my new products. I have a line coming out for dogs called Blazin Barkery. I'm very excited about. And I know, right? So we're going to have our proprietary melatonin blend called Melabonin.
They're also good.
It's what I do. I like making products. So check those out at blazinbakery.com. Thank you guys again. As always, my name is Tara Misu. I love you all and keep trailblazing.